Long ago there was a man named Joseph who was wrongfully imprisoned in Egypt, but the Lord was with him and gave him favor in the eyes of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put him in charge of all the other prisoners, and he paid no attention to anything that was under Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him. Well, sometime after that, the Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker were sent to prison because they committed some offense. And one morning Joseph came to them and said, "Oh, why are your faces downcast?" And they said, "Well, we've both had a dream, but there's no one to interpret them for us." And Joseph said, "Well, do not interpretations of dreams belong to God? Please tell them to me." So the chief cupbearer said, "In my dream there was a vine, and on this vine were 3 branches. And I took the grapes from the vine and crushed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I put Pharaoh's cup into his hand." And Joseph said, "Well, your dream means that in 3 days' time, the Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put your cup in Pharaoh's hand again." And the chief baker was so happy with this interpretation that he said, "Well, in my dream, there were 3 bread baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket was full of bread for Pharaoh, but the birds came and they ate it all up." And Joseph said, "Well, your dream means that in 3 days' time, Pharaoh will lift up your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh." Well, 3 days from then was the Pharaoh's birthday, and he had a great feast, and he lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his position, and he hung the chief baker just as Joseph had said. Well, 2 years went by, and Pharaoh had a dream. He dreamed that there were 7 attractive, plump cows that came up out of the Nile River. And following them were 7 lean, ugly cows. And the 7 ugly cows ate up the 7 attractive cows. And then there was a stalk of grain, and 7 plump, full ears grew on these. Following them, 7 ugly, blighted ears grew up. And the thin, blighted ears swallowed up the good ears. And he was very troubled, and he called for all of his wise men, but none of them could interpret the dream. But then the chief cupbearer remembered Joseph, and he told the Pharaoh about this Hebrew that he had met in jail who interpreted his dream. And so Pharaoh called and summoned Joseph, and he told Joseph all about his dream. And Joseph said, "Well, the 7 good cows and the 7 good ears are 7 years. And the 7 ugly cows and the 7 lean ears are 7 years of severe famine. God has told you what he is about to do. Egypt is about to experience 7 years of abundance, but following those will be 7 years of severe famine. So what Pharaoh should do is during the 7 years of abundance, he should store up food as a reserve against the 7 years of famine." And Pharaoh and all of his servants were very pleased with this. And Pharaoh said, "Oh, since God has told you this, you are the most wise and discerning person. I shall put you in charge of my house, and all of my servants will do as you command, and only I shall be above you." And during the 7 years of abundance, Joseph stored up from all over Egypt lots of food in storehouses. And there was so much grain that it was like the sand in the sea. And then when the years of famine arrived, Joseph opened up all the storehouses to the Egyptians. And people came from all over the world to buy food from Egypt because the famine was so severe.